My dear Americans and old friends of China, I recently can't help but notice there is a perilous trend on the social media, particularly on Xiaohongshu, to promote a glorified image of China, while in the meantime belittling America in many aspects to the effect of a contrast. I believe many of you have done it out of affection and goodwill. Others have done it simply to annoy their social media at home. I have also noticed that the Chinese netizens who have previously lived a life of blameless obscurity, who have always held America high in their regard, are suddenly under the dangerous impression that America isn't so great after all. My dear Americans, this is not only dangerous but also delusional for us, your beloved Chinese sisters and brothers. And with this message, I urge you to stop disparaging your motherland and to help us restore the holy faith of a paradise-like, perfect America. It is much needed, particularly at a time when the US aid, or you would call it the USAID, is under mortal attack from Mr. Elon Musk and the ruthless man of his lot. Here are a few reasons, after learning of which you will understand why you, being a good friend of China, should agree with me to do so. First, the greatness of America was built on self-assurance, whereas the Chinese empire is being built upon the belief of 100 years of humiliation, by which, since the Opium War in 1839, we have firmly acknowledged that we had fallen behind the West, behind Japan, behind Korea, and if necessary, behind India. And the struggle to get out of this march of behindness has always been the driving power of the Chinese people to push forward. And now, your relentless removal of our sense of behindness is effectually to deprive us of the engine for going forward. I and many of my friends are worried about us falling into the inadvertent trap of complacency after watching too many downsides of your society, which of course were deliberately and selectively presented to us. In other words, we are in a belief crisis at the moment because of your careless conduct. To make it worse, just about 2 weeks ago, the BBC released a documentary titled Made in China 2025, sucking up in every possible angle to China's technological triumph. The BBC, traditionally not known to be a cheerleader for China, has done a decent job for at least half a century, being China's chief whip from the West, often worrying about China's well-being and longevity with tones such as, "Will China collapse next year?" Or, "Yes, China survived this year, but at what cost?" The BBC's brilliant job has worked fine for us for decades. But the sudden change of course 2 weeks ago caught me completely off guard. What a ghastly thing to do, hugging the panda. And that is precisely the sort of poisonous stuff I think should be kept off the Chinese audience. My dear American friends, to grasp that matter, you will have the essence of the spectrum. And secondly, some of China's most prominent America-loving media, who had for decades held a critical tone to anything Chinese, are going through financial difficulties at the moment. Hence, they are increasingly losing their voices. If the BBC is the chief whip from the West, our own media of such kind are the domestic whip from within. To lose one whip abroad is already unfortunate, and to lose both at the same time amounts to carelessness. Therefore, I urge you, my American friends, to apply pressure on Mr. Musk's department to go easy with US aid, and most importantly, never lay hands on the net, or you would call it NED, if they haven't laid hands on it yet. Or if you don't feel capable of doing any of this for us, at least what you can do is to stop being so excessively humble on Xiaohongshu. Show us your power, wealth, and other advantages of the American society to open our eyes. And finally, I'm also aware that many of you are intolerant of the current image of America. But at any rate, please do not make China the protagonist of the day. I think it's absolutely absurd that you should set up China as your protagonist against the American villain. If you must get hold of someone to upset America, I have the perfect candidate for you. India is the world's largest democracy, and it's been the world's largest democracy for at least half a century. It's got a population as big as China, or even bigger, and much younger. India has a robust economy growing by at least 7% a year for the last 10 years. And it is most certain that India is rising as the real superpower of the East. A much bigger one and more formidable. To make things even more intimidating, they all speak fluent English in India. Which means with the help of Bollywood, they could conquer the whole of the American continent if they wished. But I have done my research for India too. The economically powerful India of today was built up on self-assurance and self-esteem, like America, and a bit of promotion on the glorified India image will only do good to the country than harm. Whereas China, we have to constantly stay humble, stay feeling behind to make things work. We must be assured that we have fallen far behind the West in every aspect, behind Japan, behind Vietnam, and most certainly behind India. Shall we say simply, let's make China behind again, please.